welcome once again, Paul, to another exciting episode of Free to Speak.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you doing? How are you doing today?
I'm quite fair. I had a long day. I work at a rehabilitation center, and today we had a visitation day where we have our sponsors come to visit to see their client, their sponsees, and then we give them an update on the progress. But we also have some little bit of psychoeducation where we tell them about a particular topic that is of interest in the moment, given our assessment of the clients. So it was quite busy, but I'm done with it today. So I'm a bit jaded, but we can do this.
Okay. But I know you got quite a bit of work tomorrow too. I hear.
Yeah. So of course there's a spin-off from that from today's session. Some people I have to meet them individually outside the rehabilitation center, but these are the families of some of our inpatients.
So we did get quite a number of comments from our last video that we did on what would female fetuses say, and we even got a comment from somebody new that's never commented before.
I saw that one. It was quite feisty.
It was, yes. So we tend to draw the most interesting people to our channel, which I guess is good. So, but I'd like to at some point come back and maybe talk about that. But I know because you had a busy day, you've had kind of a hard day, and tomorrow you've had another hard day.
No, we can give it our best shot. Don't worry about me.
Give it our best shot. So we're preparing to talk to. I guess this is our first attempt to have an actual guest on our show. Do we call this a show on our podcast? What do we call this, Paul?
Well, a few months back, you there's a song you sang about the Bobby and Paul show.
Yeah, the Bobby and
Paul.
So
I guess it's a show.
Yeah, which one of our listeners seem to love and wants us to make it our theme song. So. Should I sing it for him because he
maybe
it's the Bobby and Paul. Actually, it's actually I'm actually plagiarizing because I actually stole the tune from a cartoon I saw as a child. It was there was a movie, a Peanuts movie, a Charlie Brown movie. Do you know who the Peanuts are and Charlie Brown is?
I wouldn't.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, there was a I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was a Peanuts movie, and one of the songs in it was Champion Charlie Brown. So I took that tune and said, the Bobby and Paul show. So actually, so our listener is going to be disappointed that I actually didn't even make the tune up. I plagiarized the tune.
Well, let him give us something original.
And that part where we did the song was actually a blooper. Because sometimes what I like to do is I like to stick our bloopers at the beginning of the video because it's just kind of funny and it's an interesting way to lead into it. And that was actually a blooper that I stuck in at the beginning of the video, so it wasn't intended to be taken seriously or as a serious song, and it was a plagiarized tune anyways. So
well, sometimes beautiful things come out of unintended actions. So
yeah,
no problem.
So, but so we're gonna do this interview with Farmer Fred, and we're gonna bring him on as a guest. I don't know how much time we're gonna have to come back and talk about the comments that we had, depending upon how you're feeling after this interview is over, how much we can talk about. But we'll see how this goes. So
he could also respond to some of those comments. So no worries.
Yeah. Well, let me say. So let's talk a little bit about why we're bringing Farmer Fred on here. So Farmer Fred was actually the one that introduced us to Miriam and Buzz, and he sent us the What Would Female Fetuses Say cards, and we had a discussion with Miriam and Buzz, and we talked about that in our previous episode. So Farmer Fred is the one who set that whole thing up. He sent us the cards. He arranged for us to have this text chat with them so that they could keep their identities anonymous.
Is the Farmer Fred name a stage name or is it a real name?
Well, how much do you want to say about that, Farmer Fred? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. No, Farmer Fred was, I think, I came up with the idea of Photon Farms. It's about light and growing in it 30 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time ago. And I started a little website, and it's kind of morphed into doing things. The whole thing of Farmer Fred is because it's about light and growing it. It's the whole farm image, right? But it's obviously a spiritual quest as well. So, so yeah, and the site has kind of grown into the things that I'm doing now in retirement. I'm not really retired. I still work a lot of hours, but I get a lot more. I'm free to arrange my schedule more because I'm retired, right? And so I can do some of my favorite things like going to prison to lead worship. I'm in recovery. So, I mean, I'm 11 years sober from my core addiction, and I have a lot of sponsees. So I have more time to work my sponsees because I'm retired. I can shift my schedule. And then, as part of that, I've found images, prayer images like you see in the background here. But images help me to pray and to connect with
the icons. I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot more.
Yeah.
So if you can see there.
Yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about those?
So
their meaning to you and something?
Right. So I grew up in a tradition that didn't allow any images really, other than the flannel boards in Sunday school, with the little Jesus walking around. But then as I got older, I realized, and I got part of a tradition of my religion that allowed images. And so I found myself very drawn to that. And so the first church I was in was a Eastern Orthodox church, a Lebanese church. Icons floor to ceiling everywhere, and it's like you're surrounded by this host of heaven that's praying, and angels that are praying with you during worship. And I liked that, and so I kind of imitated that. In fact, if you look at this, you can see I've imitated the row of icons right above the shelf there. That's the same way they were arranged in my church. Is all the way they had it laid out. But that was 10 years ago, and the church I'm in now doesn't use icons as much. But the bottom line is I use images a lot, and so I found that other people liked that too as a focal point. You have a picture of Jesus or whatever, or the Holy Trinity, whatever, something to focus on. And it's called, the name for it I found out is called Visio Divina, and it's kind of like Lectio Divina. So Visio Divina just means you use an image, and then it makes prayers bubble up in your heart and you pray. I found that most of the people I sponsor are Christians. And so they are attracted to these. They see these images that I distribute, 4x6 beautiful cards of them, freely. That's my nonprofit. So my nonprofit, Photon Farms, became a nonprofit 4 years ago because and that was just because my accountant said, you could write you spent thousands of dollars on this, giving away all these things and helping people and giving books to people in prison, and you spent thousands of dollars. You could have wrote that off. I said, I didn't know that. So he said, make it a nonprofit. So we did that. We stepped through those hoops and made it a nonprofit. And so I still distribute these freely. The cards are never for sale. They're just what people would call prayer cards. I call them Visio Divina cards. You don't have to use the prayer that's on the back. You can just see the image and let that elicit prayer in your heart. And I've got a lot of sponsees and friends in recovery and just friends in prison that love them. And so I give them away. So that's part of the ministry I do with Photon Farms. And then, of course, in recovery. So
you say you've been in recovery for 11 years. And you're also helping others. So you're involved with
sponsorship
and like with it would be like Alcoholics Anonymous, like what would it
and that's a really good question. So as you know, it all started, the 12-step program started on the East Coast of the United States of America around the 20s or 30s, 1920s and 30s. And it took a turn. The genius of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, with Bill and Bob, they were the founders. They were already part of a group called, you remember who it is, Paul? I can't remember the name of the group. The Oxford Group. The Oxford Group. The Oxford Group on the East Coast of the United States of America, so somewhere in Boston area, whatever. They had already started. It was an Anglican Catholic group that started this kind of group to help people deal with their alcohol addiction. And Bill and Bob took it and just expanded it and then opened it up to everybody. That was the genius, I think, of it, because they said, look, there's people, just because you don't go to church doesn't mean you don't need to recover. These same spiritual principles will work for anybody that has an open heart and mind.
Right.
And so the 12 steps they didn't strip Jesus out of it. They didn't strip God out of it, because if you read the big book, the big blue book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's full of scripture, full of it. They just don't reference it. They don't say, oh, this is Numbers 3, right? But it's there, and all kinds of scriptural principles are there. And so as time went on, people who had other addictions, overeating, drugs, drug-related addictions, sex addictions, whatever, started to realize, well, these same 12 steps work for us. We just need to supplement this book that's mainly about alcoholism with things that pertain specifically to our addiction. So you have, for example, the orange book for Overeaters Anonymous, and you have all these different books, the white book for Sexaholics Anonymous. And it gets specific. It takes, the big book is their main book they jump off of, but then they have a supplementary book. And my core addiction was, with SA, with Sexaholics Anonymous. So not that most of us have multiple addictions. That's common. Paul, am I right? 2 or 3, 4. Sometimes it's like whack-a-mole. You have to keep whacking. You get your core addiction down and you realize I have 4 other addictions, and you have to work the same process of recovery on those as well. That same type of surrender. So my core group is SA here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then I'm actually the gatekeeper for that. That got assigned to me 4 months into the program 11 years ago. They said, you need to be answering the phones when people call and direct them to a meeting and that kind of thing. So we have to vet.
What is it? The gatekeeper meaning?
So
you monitor to make sure that they're...
Exactly. So AA is very public in most of their meetings. I would say 95% of their meetings, anybody can walk in. You can go online, go anywhere and see where the meetings are, what time they are, the place they're going to be at. That is not the case with SA, which when Paul mentioned stigma, that's what triggered my mind. Oh, you're right. I mean, so because I deal with this all the time. In SA, there's still a stigma attached to it. In AA, not so much. You're drunk, okay, we love you now. That's the way it's become in the last 20, 30 years in America anyway. I can't speak for Uganda. But it's, Arthur, the movie Arthur, 1981, showed that the public was being more accepting and loving and could laugh at alcoholics and try to help them, But not...
The Lovable Drunk. Yeah, I remember that movie, The Lovable Drunk.
Yeah, Lovable Drunk. Yeah. And it's funny, right? And they're using humor to defray some of the these alcoholics are monsters. They beat their families, they've abused their families sometimes. But hey, there's a human side. They're people, right? So they showed the personhood side of alcoholics. So
yeah, let me read your comment that you made on one of our episodes. You said, I would love to chat with Paul and Bobby about the stigma of addiction, which is what you just mentioned. And you said, having been sober now for 11 years in what is considered the worst of the worst addictions, I have certainly felt the stigma firsthand, and so have many people I've sponsored over the years. Would you consider an episode where you openly chat with me about this? So that's why we're here. We're here to openly chat about this, and you have Paul here to answer any questions you may have, and maybe we can even ask you about some of the questions we have. Yeah,
I like the part where he's talking about cross addictions, where someone could have more than just one addiction. And the thing about addiction is that when someone turns out to be an addict, their brain structure is altered, and they develop this addictive brain where they can easily become addicted to anything else that they give much more attention to, that gives them a level of dopamine excitement. They could easily get caught up to an addiction. That's why you find someone can use alcohol, they get addicted, then you find that they're addicted to weed, and then you find they're addicted to gambling, and yeah. So I copy. Now, he talked about sex addiction, and there's a client I've had. She has an alcohol problem, but also she has a sex problem. So when you said the sex addiction, it's not so common here, and the stigma is really, really, really strong when it comes to sex addiction. Really, really strong. It's almost something you don't want to talk about. But
It's something you keep secret.
yeah, you don't want to even just like talk about even just trying to create awareness for it.
No, you're speaking exactly to what I've experienced for the last 11 years or so. So the reason, and I got put as gatekeeper within a month or, a few months, because you want to put people in positions of service right away. So I was told that once I was sober 3 months, he said, you need to get out. My sponsor said, get out there and sponsor. I'm not ready. No, get out there and sponsor people, because you learn you learn to be a good sponsor by starting as a bad sponsor. But also as a servant to take the phone calls and the emails that people inquiring, wanting help. It's my job to first thing say, this is not AA, this is not a public group. People, by merely admitting they have a sexually compulsive behavior, could lose their job. So we're on anonymity. Nobody comes to our group except people who are struggling. Their spouse, the significant other who's affected by their acting out and all that stuff. The pastor, nobody, no professionals, nobody's allowed there unless you're struggling with a sex addiction. And by the way, you don't tell anybody about who was at the meeting last week. That's nobody's business. So anonymity, not that we are perfectly not that we are perfect about it, but that's the goal. Because, when the judge and the preacher shows up to the meeting because they're struggling, not even their wife, nobody needs to know. That's nobody's business, right? And sometimes it's not even healthy for the significant others to know right away until they're more sober, right? So, it's a hard job because the stigma is so much. I mean, a lot of people go to AA to hook up and have sex with somebody. That's the reality I deal with because I've had sponsors. But yeah, it's the stigma is so much more severe. I never ever mention, like you said, Paul, I never mention if there's no SA meeting in where I'm at and I want to go to an in-person meeting, because there's Zoom meetings all over now. You can go to Zoom meeting any hour of the day for AA, SA, OA, any of them. But if you're in a town and you want to go to a face-to-face meeting and the only thing available is AA, I never mention that I'm an SA. Yes, like you said, it's the pariah, the leper in the colony. We don't talk about this.
So I want to ask something about the reason why there is a stigma around sexual addiction. Why is it different from other addictions? There's a couple thoughts I have. One is, it seems that people maybe don't take serious sexual addiction because, at least in America, within the culture, within the media, within the entertainment, sex is seen as something so casual, and almost every sort of sexual activity is allowed and shown, and is shown as something that you can do, and and it almost seems like there's an attitude of like, if you have a sexual addiction, people think that that's funny, that's something to laugh at, because maybe some people don't believe there is such a thing as a sexual addiction. Or maybe when people think of a sexual addiction, which is why there's a stigma, they think of the worst, like people who rape or people who sexually molest children. They think of probably the worst of the worst. So, in your opinion, Fred, why do you think that there is a stigma around sexual addiction that is more than what you see for other addictions?
Wow, there's a lot of layers to that, Bobby. I mean, at a core level, I feel like it should be taken more seriously because it deals with generating the next generation. Our genitals generate the next generation. What we do with our genitals is really important. What we do and don't do with them. So we know inherently in our soul of souls, we know that this is important. Our society has said it's not important. Your body's not important. It doesn't even matter. You can define your gender. All these things. It can do all these things. They say nothing matters when they know it does. They know it does. So it's a sensitive, I would say, I'd use the word holy, but I don't think that would make sense to my secular friends. It's so precious. We protect the things that are precious. Inherently in our hearts, we do, even though we may be denying it, so we can go out and do what we want when we want. So I think there's a reality to that. That's one level. And then, secondly, like you said, some of my friends in recovery are in prison because they molested somebody. One of the things I do in my nonprofit is I do prison ministry. I go and lead worship services in the prison. Well, as you know, prisons are divided into different houses or groups. One of my groups I go to is in the protective unit. Why do you think it's protected? Because some of the people in there did abhorrent crimes, including molesting children or rape and violent crimes. And so they have to be protected from the general population who see them as the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And I'll be real with you, the guys in the protective unit are a lot better behaved. They're more organized. They want to be there. They want to worship. They want to recover. They want to get better. But that's the reality that we deal with in our culture. So even in prison, there's a pecking order of you did this, this, and this, but then you hurt a child, we will kill you, right? So they protect them more carefully and put them in a different unit. So I think it's an overall culture thing, no matter where you're at. That's what I'm noticing. So, but the signs of hope, I think you talked about people making fun of it, Bobby. The movie Arthur kind of was poking fun at alcoholics a little bit in a fun-loving way, right? The lovable alcoholic, right? Well, I've started to see signs of that a little bit in Saturday Night, like SNL skits. SNL skits.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're starting to make light of the exact thing you were talking about, Paul. People going in an AA meeting and they let this good-looking guy in, and he's a sexaholic too, and they all want to hook up with him. Okay, that was a skit I just saw, and so they're starting to be able to laugh at it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You're dealing with a very critical subject, and if I can laugh at it, there's a lot of laughter in our meetings, by the way. In 12-step meetings, there's a lot of laughter. We laugh at ourselves. We need to laugh at ourselves at how ridiculous some of our stinking thinking is, right? We need to laugh at ourselves. So I'm seeing it as a sign in our culture that these are real people. When you can joke at the silliness of what somebody's doing instead of just, no, they're monsters, they need to be killed. You see the difference? There's a difference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's good. That's healthy. I'm starting to see a little bit of that in our culture abroad when the comedy skits can do stuff like that now, and it's aired, right? It gets aired. It wouldn't have been aired 30 years ago. So
yeah,
I appreciate the work that you're doing, and especially the work with the prisons. We could use that service in Uganda. if you have that, if you have what it takes, you can pay us a visit, and we can still run through with our prisons. I feel like there's a lot of work down here, much as you have a lot of work that side, but also to widen your experience outside your comfort, the spaces that you're used to. You can come over. You're welcome. Anyway,
I would love it.
Anyway,
is there a line between humor and mockery? I'm wondering about some of the things you're talking about in American entertainment now. Are they able to laugh at it, or are they mocking it? And is there a line between that?
Yeah, if there is a line, it's a very blurry line. It gets crossed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when I first came in, oh my gosh, this is 2014, and coming to grips with, wait a minute, I read, so you read the introduction to the White Book, which is the supplementary book for SA, to the big book, right, of AA. So you have AA and the White Book. You read the introduction, you start reading it, and it says, oh my God, this is me. And the shame, because the stigma, the culture, right, you just feel so ashamed. You're just like, believe all these years I didn't know, it's like, that's what's going on. I'm addicted to this stuff and I can't stop. And that was the whole point, is you can't stop on your own. You need others to help you, right? And to admit that It is so hard. But the first time you walk into that group and everybody's in the same boat as you, there's no offense, no psychologists, no pastors, nobody in there to tell you, you know, what you need to do. They're just other drunks like you. You know, other drunks, and you're drunk on food, drunk on sex, doesn't matter what you're drunk on. And they've got sober. One guy said he was sober for 7 years. I said, "What? No, you cannot be sober. You cannot be sexually sober for it's impossible." But here he was sitting, telling me so much encouragement by telling, because we celebrate those birthdays, right? Those days of those years of recovery and the months, and initially in the months of recovery, we celebrate those because it's hard, and you've got to learn to connect with others appropriately. And so when you're in that group and you feel so loved and accepted, and like there's, you know, these people never kick you out because you screwed up yesterday or today or 3 weeks ago. They're never going to kick you out. You're going to hear.
I'd like to add some before you move on. Yeah. In our approach, at least in Uganda, when we're dealing with addiction, we always go for total abstinence, especially like with substances, because sex addiction is not such a commonly spoken about topic, but with substances we usually go for total abstinence, non-reduction. Now, when it comes to sex addiction, what is sobriety in it? Because now, like some of the clients that I have are married, so it's a married person that is sexually addicted. So what does sobriety mean for that person?
Very important. Thank you, Paul. That's a very important question. And SA is the original group formed in 1979, which sprang out of Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? They define sobriety as no sex with self or others except for the spouse, and even then possibly abstaining for a while you get your head clear, that type of thing, okay? No sex with self or others, period. So, yes, abstinence, except for with the spouse. But there comes a point, if the spouse is ready and okay, that because you're so twisted in your mind, you're lusting after your spouse. Lust is never appropriate. Never. We are to be a gift to our spouse, a gift to them, love, a gift of love to them. But we don't take. You know, lust takes, love gives. So it's very important to define what sobriety is in the different groups. Now, because SA defines spouse as the marriage, you know, the spouse is considered somebody of the opposite sex, you know, in SA. That was in 1979. As you know, things have changed in America. So many other groups have spun off that make sobriety much more define your own sobriety. While the people in SA, including those who tend to call themselves gay or, you know, whatever, they need the firm bottom line. They need a firm bottom line, and they did not. Many of them did not leave and form their own groups where they can define their own sobriety, because they said that's insane. If you if you can define your own sobriety, you're going to be a mess within a year. You know, that type of thing. So in SA, it's very firm, and I didn't know there were other groups, but there are other groups that spun out of SA.
So the SA groups, are they international? Now, if like I have clients here, because I don't think we have it here in Uganda. So maybe you could guide me. Where could I refer such people?
Yeah, if you just go to sa.org.
Should I refer them to you?
Yeah, just go to
sa.org.
sa.org. You can say find a meeting, and then you pick your country. I think Uganda's in there, actually. Maybe only in Kampala, or maybe only in the capital. I'm not sure.
We talked about earlier that people go for AA just to hook up. Some of my clients, I don't trust them. I'm like, I have a feeling this one will go to SA just to find someone to hook up with. I really, I struggle to actually trust them, but I guess it's something they need to try out.
And I get women, you know, because I'm the gatekeeper, I get women and men calling. But here's the reality is we strongly encourage, and this is right in the SA literature, we strongly encourage co-ed meetings, because there's no safer place to be than in a meeting of people who, the majority of them, want to get well. They want to stop lusting after others, whether they're male or female, they want to stop lusting. So it's probably one of the safest places you can be, but yes, of course they can hook up. I mean, but you know what I mean? And a lot of guys don't want to be in groups that have women in them. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Some of the guys here are same-sex attracted, so there's nobody safe for them. What are you saying? get real. Let's get over yourself. It's not about you. It's about being with a group of people, male and female, who want to stop lusting after others. Progressive victory over lust is a core value of SA for sure. Not necessarily others groups, but definitely SA. So this is all in the white book. I'm not telling you anything that's not public knowledge here, by the way. This is all in the white book. So
Robert asked you what stigma means. What brings about stigma? I think stigma is, it comes from ignorance. The more or the less exposed people are to information, the more likely they will be, the more vulnerable they are to stigmatize, to act in a stigmatizing way towards other people. I think we had a conversation sometime about racism sometime, and usually still racists are people who are not exposed. You find like someone grew up in a white community, everyone is white, that person is very vulnerable to becoming a racist because they are not as exposed to black people as, and the reverse is true. Even in Uganda here we have spaces where we have tribes in Uganda and you have like 66 tribes, but there are different spaces that are more concentrated where you have just one particular tribe in a place of like 50 square miles. Now, the people at the center of that, who are in a rural setting, not exposed, not educated, they usually turn out to be very, very strong racists or other tribalists. They don't want to interact with other people. They can't even marry across them. They're people related to them. But the more people get information, the more they mix with people who from different races, they find it very open to actually date outside their race. So I think it's the same thing with mental health or addiction for today's discussion. The less information is out there, the less exposed people are to this kind of information, the more we're not doing much about the stigma. But if we do conversations like this, and then probably have more outreaches out there just to spread information, I think their stigma can be curbed. And then also we have the other stigma that's coming from just our norms, our culture norms. Now, the culture norms in Uganda still vary across different tribes, but still they have a meeting point where it's almost just like the African culture. And now when it comes to sexual addiction, it's almost like abominable. It's a taboo. So you're talking about something that's at a level of a taboo. You're probably not going to talk about sex SA in Uganda publicly because you're talking about a taboo. And this sex addiction, when it comes to sex addiction, you find that the world, at least in Uganda, people are more sympathetic to men who are sexaholics, and women are so much judged. I've interacted with men who are sexaholics, and they're almost worshipped by their peers. They're like the kings, the big deal.
Yes,
that's true.
Whereas women are called whores, sluts, and women are so ridiculed. And that usually women who have this kind of behavior, they usually end up using a lot of substances because of the way they are treated. Whereas men, you find a man can be a sexaholic, but he has no substance use problem, but it's just a sex addict. Even just gender-wise, how we approach it, how we look at it from a cultural lens, we already separate in how we judge or who gets stigmatized more.
Right. And it's the same here.
Yeah, I see the sun's hitting us a little weird here now because we're approaching sunset here and the angle's coming in.
We can get stinky.
It looks cool. Paul is looking golden.
Yeah,
I know, right?
golden, yeah. Let's see if we can
just move that thing.
move sideways here.
No, that will be enough.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then,
Come here.
yeah, just slide it over here.
Yeah, I'm almost looking like what's that movie where we had golden people?
Yeah, what is that movie?
Is Apocalypto? I don't know if you watch Apocalypto.
Do you-
Do you watch Apocalypto?
Apocalypto, is that the one Mel Gibson movie?
Yeah, it's
Mel
not.
Gibson movie.
Yeah, I remember
Intense,
that
yeah.
movie. That
There's
was-
a new one coming probably at the end of the year or early next year.
Mm.
Well,
Apocalypto.
he's doing the resurrection.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to that because that's going to be like all in the netherworld. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But no, I want to affirm what you were saying, Paul, about in America. Yeah, very much so. You know, guys are looked up to if they can conquer women. You know, and almost a badge, and they don't need to have be an alcoholic or a drug addict because they're getting praised for what they're doing wrong, right? It's like whereas a woman,
I know, right?
completely double standard. It's a terrible double standard.
Yeah.
These women come to our groups and they're just afraid. They're ashamed more than the guys, even ashamed more than the guys. And I'm like, no, we're all in this together. We all have the same sickness with different details. You know, different details. So, yeah.
I would applaud a woman who actually admits that she has this problem.
Yeah.
It's a very big step for a woman.
It's
Whereas
a big step for guys. I mean, trust me, it's scary for guys to walk into their first meeting, but it's way scarier for girls. It just totally is. So I give them a lot of credit for trying to seek help. So, you know, there's the masculine genius, which is unfortunately just kind of overwhelms the feminine. The feminine genius is important to hear. Very important. You need to hear how their heart operates and appreciate it and compliment, because we're complementary, right? So it's really important to be able to hear each other. So I love when females come to the group and share their hearts. It's like, man, I never thought of it that way. And well, I'm a guy. It's just I don't have that feminine genius like they do. I can incorporate their wisdom, you know, and adhere to some of that feminine genius even as a guy if I hear it and learn from them. So.
all right. Any final comments, Paul?
I'm just happy and proud that Fred was able to, you know, join us today.
Yeah.
I hope he can join us some other time again.
Yeah.
I guess the channel is open. He can always come on whenever he feels like there's a topic we can do together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Fred. And thank you also for setting up the chat conversation between us and Miriam and Buzz.
Yes, they were so happy. Oh my word. They have expressed to me over and over how grateful they are to the two of you and to Lily and to Sharon just for being interacting with them. They don't get that. They can't take this to their family. They don't tell their families about this. The girlfriends that made the site and the girlfriends that helped Buzz. They can't, you know, it's just like it'd be too much. But so they're getting good feedback, and they've literally they've tweaked almost every page on their website because of your feedback. So thank you. They wanted me to express how thankful they are.
Well, and I know that they've reached out to us to request that we do another chat, and they've provided a couple potential topics, which I've shared with Paul. They reached out to me, and then I forwarded the email to Paul. So
Wonderful. Okay.
We'll be reaching out soon again, and we hope to do another chat.
Yeah, and they figured out how to just Zoom with me with no video so that so I can share your screen. Like the chat screen.
Okay.
And then there's more real time and it won't be such a delay. So I think it'll go better.
All right. So I'd like to thank you, Fred, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching us, and we'll be back for another topic in another 7 days. Be sure to leave your comments, any comments that you have about the discussion, or any questions that you have that maybe Fred could respond to, or Paul and I could respond to. But otherwise, we'll see you with another topic. Give your own suggestions for topics if you have any, and we'll see you in another 7 days. Bye for now.
Bye.